the most used emoji of last year was this thing. No surprise. It's all very sad. And if you think about it, this is where we were. We were living in a world where the car was on a beautiful track, apparently, and it suddenly stopped. And we don't know why. We look for service engine lights. We're looking for the ability to understand whether we have enough fuel, etc. And what was amazing to me is that as we suddenly stopped, we looked to the rearview mirror. We sat there for quite some time wondering what was behind us, what made us stop, where are we going to go now? We turn the car on, it doesn't start. And then we start checking out the dashboard. Do we have enough fuel? Is the service light on? What happened to the radio station that we're listening to? And for me, that was about 9 months of feeling like we were just frozen. And as you start to sort of thaw out and look beyond the dashboard, we looked at the bonnet. And the problem with the bonnet is that most of us just look to the peripheral vision to make sure we're not going to be hit by a deer, and we're polarized by the end of the car. But now, as we turn a new year, and now we're thinking about vaccinations and masks on and all those amazing things that are going to make us much safer as people, because pandemics are going to be more frequent, believe me. What's going to happen is that we have the ability to look to the horizon some more and dream about that. So I want to talk about that. In the quiet times of last year, I was impressed by brands that were really considerate. This is an example of what BMW Motorrad did, the motorcycle side of BMW. I love this because, they just did this beautiful subtle thing, which is the road is calling. And by the way, it's one of the only things you can do by yourself. Love, love, love. Guinness did this piece of work, which I was inspired by, which is stay home. They used their brand. They extended their design. I want you to think about design as something that allows you to stand out in the world of noise. So they did this with their own product. They also came out and said they signed a 9,000-year lease. Awesome. And if you think about it, McDonald's participated, Audi participated, Burger King participated. All of these big brands did something unique about their brand speaking to the audience. So the first lesson there is, can you reflect back cultural change as marketing? If so, you can be appropriated. And I thought this was quite genius. Even Gold's Gym, a smaller brand that we know, these guys.
Thank you guys very much. Just want to make sure you guys can all hear me. Is that a yes? I'll take that as a yes. So I'm going to start diving right in. You can always tweet at me. We're going to have some Q&A at the end of this. And you can always ask me questions, but anything that doesn't get answered, you can always tweet at me and I'll try to do my best and answer it. A little bit about me. I've co-founded quite a few companies, ad agency, Neil Patel Digital, software company like UberSys that helps with marketing, and Crazy Egg that helps with conversion. And from co-founding these companies, I've ended up working with a lot of brands, the big ones like the Amazons and the Microsofts of the world. But what's interesting is I've also worked with a lot of SMBs as well, and a lot of companies in different industries. So I've seen a lot of trends in data. And that trends in data has allowed me to run a lot of experiments and figure out what's really working when it comes to SEO and where the future is going. And when I, talk and I'm giving you these stats and data, as I mentioned, work with big brands, have all these awards and testimonials. And I'm not trying to say that to brag, but it's more so when I give you stats, when I give you data, I'm telling you based on what works. And I wouldn't have those stats and data if the results that I was producing and my experiments weren't working. What's also unique is I see both sides of marketing. So keep this in mind when I go over the facts in the future of SEO. I see it from, the industry of, let's say, like the Facebooks and the platforms like the social networks, because they ask me to speak at their events and then they tell me what they're going to end up doing in the future. And I see it from the platforms ends as well as like the search engines like the Bings, the Googles, because I've worked with them as well. And I also practice what I preach. I'm generating over 9 million readers a month. And as I mentioned, if I can do this, and I can get the traffic, what I'm about to tell you will work for any other industry, because SEO, doing it in the SEO industry, is more competitive than any other industry because I'm competing with people like me. So let's play a little game before we get started. First off, how many blogs do you think there are on the web? Take a guess. 1,000? Of course not. There's more than that. 1,000,000? Of course not. There's more than that, but maybe 100 million? It's actually 1 billion plus. That's roughly one blog for every 7 people. Do you think we really need more blog content? Not really. Doesn't mean you shouldn't blog. It just means that there's a better way, and I'm going to show you. If you had to guess how many enterprise companies are leveraging content marketing, it's pretty much all of them. And the amount of startups, they're raising millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, sometimes even billions of dollars. What are they raising it for? Sales and marketing. That's where the majority of the money's going these days. And by the end of 2020, over 50% of searches were voice search in the United States. And that number by the end of this year is going to get closer to 50% worldwide. So voice search like Alexa and devices like that is blowing up. Now here's Google's revenue during a recession. Look at 2008, recession. What happened? Went up. Look at 2020, COVID.
Store attic. And then I began observing how my peers and my team and leadership had adapted to this new normal over the last 6 months. And in some ways, it felt like everything had changed, and yet everything was still the same. As a manager, I looked at my team, and it was clear that this was not the team I left. Some had a harder time adapting, while others loved the flexibility of working from home. Some struggled to focus in the uncertainty. Some picked up new hobbies. Some were lonely. And while our jobs were close to the same, there was this new culture that I was coming back to. In some ways, this new culture felt more intense, right? It was more dire to get things right the first time. But in other ways, this culture had more grace. You can't make this meeting. That's okay. I'll send you the notes. I don't feel like having my camera on for this meeting. That's okay. And new virtual activities were being spun up to fight Zoom fatigue, like no meeting Fridays and meeting roulette, which is a really cool thing. If you're interested, ping me on LinkedIn. I can explain it. And so after, being at LinkedIn for 5+ years, I suddenly felt like I was the new kid on the block. And I wanted to address the change. My team and everybody at LinkedIn, they had all slowly morphed into this new normal without noticing, right? And I had come back, and it was very binary to me. There was a way that we worked last spring, and there is a way that we are working now. And so I began asking my team, how can I help promote the change that has been the good and make that our new normal? And so we had a lot of discussion around this, and that's what I hope to share with you today. So I'm going to talk about how we doubled down, or what we doubled down on to make the new normal worthwhile and change us for the good. The new strategies we implemented to remain relevant and helpful to our audience, also adjusting to the new normal, right? And how we had to turn performance metrics on its head and convince leadership to put them on the back burner for a bit. All in all, how a year and a marketing and a pandemic